Welcome to the WFDB's Young Diamantaires webinar with the World Diamond Council's President Edward Asscher. We will just start in a few moments. If you would like to know more about the Young Diamantaires, please check us out at www.ydts.org. Hi everyone, my name is Chris, I am from Munich, Germany, and I'm your host today on today's webinar with the World Diamond Council's President Edward Asscher. Edward, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Chris, thank you very much for inviting me.
With me on this call today, I have Ahalia from Antwerp, Belgium. Thank you, Ahalia, for being here today.
Adriana from Melbourne, Australia.
And I have Lebo from Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you all for participating in this call. I really appreciate it. Before we get started, I would like to give everyone else who's getting on the call today a minute or two to make sure they can watch the whole session. And this will give me a chance to introduce you formally, Edward. Before we did this interview, I requested an email from you asking a couple points about your little bio. And to say I was impressed is an understatement in this case. You wrote me, for instance, you were born and raised in Amsterdam. You're a native from there. You studied at the University of Groningen and earned a degree in business economics and administration. You are married, 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and 2 of your children, Mike and Lita, who are also young diamantaires, run the family company these days. And as I assume, very successful too. You have been married to your wife, Katie, since the 1970s. And in the same year, you started out in the family company. Your uncle already, I think, did a lot in Japan back in the 60s. And so this built your brand there. And you told me you went to Japan over 100 times. So that's quite a traveling history there. But you were not just in major positions in your company and the diamond organizations. You also were active in politics, where you were a senator for the Liberal Party in the Dutch Upper House, if I got that correctly. And also notably, you funded an organization for the mentally handicapped that grew from an organization, from initiative to an organization with 8,000 members. You wouldn't believe it, but you also had some spare time. So you were the chairman at an international horse competition in the Netherlands. You did regatta sailing with your kids. You loved spending time with your family, and you were on the board of the Jewish Historical Museum in Amsterdam as well. And finally, in 2020, you retired just to become the president of the World Diamond Council. Edward, you ended your email with, "I probably forgot many other details, but I hope this might do." So there's not much I can imagine what else there was amazing you have done in your life. But especially, personally for me, thank you very much for all you have done in the diamond industry. Just the amazing background. Which brings me to, you are not just the first time the president of the World Diamond Council. This is your second term, correct?
Yes.
Especially for members that are new to the diamond world, what is the World Diamond Council and what does your job look like?
The World Diamond Council we have to start with the Kimberley Process. The Kimberley Process was established in 2003. Today it consists out of 86 governments, I believe, and 2 observers. One of the observers is civil society, combination of the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, the diamond industry. The diamond industry is represented by the World Diamond Council and consists of all the elements in the diamond industry. So the mining, both large-scale mining, alluvial mining, trading in rough, polishing, wholesaling, rough and polished, retailing, and independents like banks and service companies. So what we do is we represent the whole industry from the beginning to the jeweler at the Kimberley Process.
Okay,
my work, yeah.
Yes, sorry, please.
No, my work, the second time is easier than the first time because you know more about it. It consists of negotiations with governments in the diamond industry, because to get diamantaires aligned is always something that you have to give enough attention, as we all know. I regularly consult with the other officers. That's Ferial Zerouki, who is the incoming president, and Ronnie van der Linden in New York, the treasurer, and of course our LOD, the executive manager, and Uli Scheintal, the secretary general. So it is teamwork. It is not that I do this alone, it is the team. Then we have a board and we have our members. And that's the way it works. So every day you are on the Zoom or on the telephone. And the big change between this time and the first time is that first time we could do everything in person. And now we do everything, or most things, in the Zoom. It makes it more efficient, but less pleasant because you miss the personal contacts. So that's how I spent about 75% of my time.
Okay, so you're not really in retirement, if you put it that way.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, so and your term goes till the mid of the year, if I believe
Yes.
correctly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then retirement, or?
We'll find something to do.
All right, perfect. Well, then I thank you so much for the insight, Edward. I would like to hand over to Adriana. Adriana, I think you have a great question for Edward. Please go ahead.
Edward, it's so great to have you here today, and thank you so much for volunteering your time. I do want to start off with one question, and that's basically, what inspired the creation of the Asscher cut itself? Was it made to develop an entirely new cut stone, or was it engineered to make best use of the rough diamond? Talk us through the development of the Asscher cut.
Thank you, Adriana. There are two types of Asscher cuts. The original one was invented in 1902 by my great uncle, the brother of my grandfather, the cleaver of the Cullinan. And he did it because he wanted to invent a different shape, which maximized in those days both the yield and the beauty of the stone. There is an in-between generation in the 1920s when we left the first one and made more square emerald cuts with drastic corners and high crown. And then in 1999, I went to San Diego to a GIA seminar, and I was walking with a sign on my belly saying Edward Asscher, nothing more. And there were, I think, 1,000 people, and hundreds of jewelers, retailers came up to me and said, "Are you Asscher of the Asscher cut?" I said, "Yes." "Can we buy them from you?" I said, "No, we don't make them anymore. We lost the patent during the Second World War, and we stopped making them, and everybody was making square diamonds and calling them Asscher cuts." So when I came back to Amsterdam, I then said to my brother, who at those days was my partner, and the staff, I said, "There is a big demand in America for Asscher cuts, but we shouldn't remake the old one. Let's combine modern technology and the old original Asscher cut and see if we can make a better one." So I set aside all the social functions I had in those days and started doing research. And it took us 2 years, not only of trial and error, but that's how it starts, but also with the simulation of the light breaking. And then we produced 6 diamonds. You know, there are millions of possibilities of angles and the facets. And in the end, I told the polisher, I said, "Listen, we know exactly how to calculate it, but now put your emotion in it, your feeling." And then we got the 6 diamonds, and that's the only time in my life I traveled with diamonds in my pocket. I traveled all around the world, and I showed them to my colleagues, friends, consumers, retailers, wholesalers, and I said, "Which one you like the best?" And everybody picked the same. And that moment we decided, this is it. we took a patent on it, and we changed the name into Royal Asscher cut. And that's what we make today in Amsterdam and elsewhere with our subcontractors. And it's important for us. So that's the history of the Royal Asscher cut.
Thank you so much, Edward. I mean, that's just an amazing history, and to hear it directly from yourself is just wonderful. And I didn't know that, so thank you so much for sharing that. I do have one other question for you as well. And that was basically, you know, what have been some of the key highlights in the Asscher Cut's history that have contributed to it being such a well-known and really adored shape today?
I think the popularity of the cut itself, because of the beauty. What also helped was Elizabeth Taylor's Asscher cut that Richard Burton gave her as a wedding present, 33-carat Asscher cut. That helped also. And of course, the other thing is the promotion. We were known for the Asscher cut from the first half of the last century. And when we restarted, it became really a very hot article. We were buying large quantities of rough, suitable to make square diamonds, Royal Asscher cuts, and then we promoted it heavily, and that helped also. So it is part history, part marketing, as is everything in our company.
So much.
Thank you, Adriana. I think Lebo, you have another question concerning the Asscher cut and its history.
Thank you so much, Edward, for making the time, like what Adriana said. I mean, after all of what you've shared with us, I'm sure you'll be able to easily pick an answer to this question. So what has been the biggest highlight in your diamond career to date?
In the field of human resources, of course, that I could leave the company to Mike and Lita. In the field of diamonds, I remember the first time that I was there and that my father sold an important diamond. That was a red, burgundy red 5-carat emerald cut. And I was 3 months in the business. I didn't know what the red diamond was at all. My father had bought it from Harry Oppenheimer from his private collection. It's a diamond with a long history. And he asked me to pick the white baguettes to put it around it. So that's the only thing I did. My father sold the stone. It went to the Philippines. I went to the Philippines one day to see if I could buy it back. But the owner said, no, you cannot, because my wife is wearing it every day. That's one of the diamonds I'll never forget. I have seen it in the US, in New York, in a museum, when it was in display. When the family passed away, it was bought by a dealer and came back in the market for a very, very, very different price. The other one was, I remember I sold a 69-carat D Flores pear shape, and the customer hadn't seen it before she bought it. That was also quite interesting. But if you look at your history my history of 50 years in the diamond business, I'm writing about it with a friend today, a book with the anecdotes, and you see that there are many nice anecdotes that you can tell about half a century in the diamond business. Highlights as well as mistakes that you make, because we remember the highlights, but we also make mistakes every day. But that's the way it goes when you are running a business.
So a 5-carat burgundy red diamond. This is what, wow, that's special. That is special, Edward. Now more about the work of the Kimberley Process and the World Diamond Council. If you could please talk us through what the relationship between the two is. You know, this is the Kimberley Process and the World Diamond Council.
Well, you touch on a very different subject, because the Kimberley process is the decision mechanism is by the governments, and governments need to have consensus. It falls under the Security Council of the United Nations, has been established in 2003. When we in the diamond industry want to achieve something, we have to talk to those governments during the 2 sessions that there are every year. Every year there's a new chair. This year it is Botswana. Last year it was the Russian Federation. There are 2 sessions, intersessional and plenary, usually at all the countries, and we go to the country where the chair is. This time we did it in a hybrid form, but mainly by Zoom. But you have to lobby all those governments, and especially the governments that are important in the decision making. Then here you see that what we in the diamond industry think is that we do the research and we look at what the consumer wants and what the consumer is telling us. And then we have to explain to governments why some things have to change. On the other hand, there are technical issues that we have to discuss. We look at the statistics, we look at countries where there are problems, like today, the Central African Republic. And then you see that what we want is because of politics in diamonds. What governments want is because of international politics. And these do not always run parallel. And in that case, we find that international politics usually precede what we want. So the work that we do is lobbying, is calling people, is explaining why certain changes are needed. In the last, I would say 6-7 years, much of the discussion has been around the definition of conflict diamonds. The definition as it was in the UN from 2003 is diamonds in the hands of rebel movements. And with the proceeds, they buy arms. And to avoid that, we have the Kimberley process with the Kimberley certification system. You cannot export any diamond from any country or import in any country without a Kimberley certificate issued by the official government. And rebel movements cannot touch those certificates. So it is successful because in the beginning it stopped civil wars and it prevented bloodshed and abuse of human rights. Today, we want to change the definition and expand it into human rights, social rights, environmental issues, anti-money laundering, anti-corruption. And this is a battle we have to fight with governments. And although every government is subscribing to these principles, they have sometimes political reasons not to put it in the law or in the definition of the KP. So that's the task we face, and that's what keeps us pretty busy. We made small improvements in the last year. So that's a good thing for the first time.
That's great to know. That's great to know. Well, one other question, I think you may have answered this, but I'm going to ask you to just answer it in the simplest possible terms. What would you say was the intent behind the establishment of the Kimberley process? Number one, and number two, what is its relevance today in the diamond industry, would you say?
The intent was 2 ways. For me, as a company in those days, it was very simple. It had 2 reasons of existence. The one is ethical. It is ethical to make sure you don't touch conflict diamonds. The other one is business principle, that you don't want to touch them because it's bad for business. It damages the reputation of polished diamonds. And that's actually what the whole KP is about. It started because of violations of human rights. and the reports that we received in 1999, 2000. It took a few years to get to the KP and the KP certification system. And it is a miracle that all the countries subscribed to it and that it was accepted by the Security Council of the United Nations. So that was really a big step, and it helped to fight violations of human rights and to fight civil wars like in Sierra Leone and in Angola. Today, the relevance is that everything we do is based on the KP. The KP is the floor to the rough diamond business. If you have a rough diamond, and you know, everybody sometimes have someone walking in with some rough. If you're in the diamond business, the first question is there a KP certificate? Is it legally here? If not, you don't want to touch it. But, and some mining companies and some big retailers have their own procedures, whether it is Alrosa or De Beers or Signet. Big companies have their own, let's say, platform, a way to guarantee that the diamonds are legal and have done good to the society where they come from. But all that is also based on the KP. It is the basis of everything. Even if you look at the blockchain, you see you have to start somewhere, and the somewhere is where the diamonds have been exported legally, and that's the KP. Is it perfect? No, it is not perfect, but life is not perfect. But it is a very big step for the diamond industry. We are one of the most controlled minerals in the world. And I think we can be very proud of what has been achieved with the KP. But I don't think we have achieved the total result that we want, because we want to go further.
The Kimberley Process and the World Diamond Council did amazing things, you know, keeping conflict-free diamonds off the supply chain and everything like that. So you're doing great work, Edward. There's nothing we can say against that. And I would like to pass on to Ahalia with the next question.
Thank you so much. During your term as president of the World Diamond Council, the system of warranties was updated to expand to its original purpose. What were the improvements and how do you see those reflected on the current market?
It's a very big step for the diamond industry, because the old system of warranties was based on a self-declaration. And of course, next to the system of warranties, many of the large companies and a few smaller ones are member of the Responsible Jury Council, RJC. But the system of warranties was meant to be for every diamantaire, and not only for the large corporations. So that, as one of my statements in many speeches is, we shouldn't leave anyone behind. Leave no one behind means not a diamantaire, not a small diamond polisher in India, or a medium-sized company in South Africa or Israel. We must make it possible for everybody in the diamond industry to show that they do their due diligence. So you go to the website of the new website of the system of warranties, which is the revised system of warranties, and you have to go through all the questions and ask yourself if you are doing the right thing. But for me, the importance of the SOW is awareness, that every diamantaire knows what to look for, that he goes through the process, and that we do our due diligence together, and then we can publish that we have done it. So I think it is a great contribution to the diamond industry in all aspects. It's not that we have done it easily under my presidency. I think it has been work for the last 4 or 5 years from officers in the World Diamond Council. Has been a lot of work. Now you put together the rules and the website and the education that goes with it. It was rolled out at the Peace Day in September last year. And now our executive director, Elodie, and her staff is giving education in many diamond centers in the world, because it will take a few years, and we hope every diamantaire will then subscribe to it.
Thank you. Touching on something that you said earlier, I wanted to go back to it. When the revised SOW was published, the World Diamond Council created the toolkit that was based on self-assessment. But unlike certain other organizations with the practice guides, this one was entirely free. Was this intentional so that players from all sizes could participate and be more aware of what was going on?
Yes, it has two reasons, actually. The first one is a judicial one, a legal one. You cannot make it compulsory from one organization, which is an international organization. They're based in New York, but we are from all over the world. And say, well, here's the rule, and now it is compulsory. It doesn't work. Legally, it's impossible. Would we have liked to do that? I think would have been difficult. I prefer that people of goodwill subscribe to it. And if a majority of the industry and retailers ask for it, you ask your supplier, show me what you have done in the system of warranties. It is published on the website. And that way, it is voluntary, but you feel a moral obligation to do it. Because if a retailer says, where is the system of warranties on my invoice? Have you done your due diligence? The answer is no. Then my estimated guess is in a couple of years from now, the jeweler will say that I cannot buy it. So it is a voluntary system, but there is a big push, a moral push.
Which is absolutely great, and the future of our industry. Now, again, linking to that, you've already made the improvements, and you and the committee, but what do you hope the impact will be on the industry in terms of the future of the SOW?
I think our task and of my successor is to roll it out, do the marketing, and explain to people that it really is a must. And some people are hesitating because they have to do so many other things and members of so many other clubs. But I think this is essential for the future of the diamond industry. I think it will be successful. There will be other systems built on this and next to this. That's fine. But as I referred to before, that leave no one behind is this is something that's possible for everybody. And without cost. It takes time and mentally you have to think about it. But that's all. It is not an expensive certified system. So it is available for absolutely any diamantaire. I think that's the future.
Now, wrapping up the part about the Kimberley process specifically, I wanted to move more back to something that you mentioned earlier in terms of your family and retirement. So in 2020, you formally retired as the president of the Royal Asscher Diamond Company. But as we all know in our industry, no one really retires, given the fact that you're doing this for the second time. And the company now has two presidents. Usually there's one president, but in this case, both your son and daughter have taken on the challenge. What have been the benefits of having both Lita and Mike take over the family business?
It's a very interesting question. Retiring is not easy. I took a coach for 2 years. That when she came in to my office, her first question was, well, Mr. Asscher, what do you think about retirement? And my answer was, I think it is terrible. 2 years later, when I retired, I was looking forward to it. So I've worked with Mike at sales exhibitions till the last day. And then I went on holiday. And Lita and Mike are running the company, and I think that's a win-win situation because they are completely complementary. And in that way, I think we get the best from both of them. And in a family business is different from a normal or a business, because you have to take care of the family, and you have to realize family goes first, not the business. So that means that you consider all your options and do what is best in a balance for both the family, Lita and Mike, and the business. And then we decided that it would be the best solution not to have two captains on the ship, but to have a team that leads the company. And that's the difference, and that's why it's working so good. So that's how we came to that conclusion, which might be surprising to some, but it works fine.
So there is a life after retirement, you can say.
Yeah, and I can add to that. I'm not on the board, on the supervisory board. I really retired from the company. I'm transferring the property, the ownership of the company to my children, so that they have to run the show and they can make the decisions without my interference. Because after 50 years, you have a tendency of saying, I've always done it this way, and why don't you? That's wrong. When we talk with the three of us, we always said, if this company, which is 167 years old today, is this doing the same in 5 years from now as we're doing today, then something is wrong, because you have to adjust to the market, to circumstances, and you have to renew. And so I should not be involved, they should do that, because the renewal of the company and adjustment to very different market situation is something that needs flexibility, that is for a young generation. So that's how it works.
Wow, no, I come from a family business myself, so I work together with my dad, my mom, my brother, so I can relate to that pretty well. But I don't know if my dad ever is going to be able to retire in a great way like you did. Lebo, you have a question to running family businesses, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. Edward, I think, after speaking about how Lita and Mike are now running the business, you're in a sense answering the question I'm about to ask, but how would you say the winning formula is to running a successful family business in the diamond industry? I mean, what would you call the winning formula for yourself?
It's a very essential question for a diamond company, for any company, but especially for a diamond company, because so many people are doing the same. They are dealing, polishing, trading, but if you want to be successful in a diamond business, you have to add value to the stone. Now, adding value can be in many ways. You can make a more beautiful stone, or a cheaper stone, or you can give better credit terms, you give better service, you can make overnight service, you can be specialized in fancy shapes or fancy colors, or there are a billion fields to specialize, but specialization is only good if you add value. If you don't add value to the diamond, there's no place for you in the market, because everybody else is doing that, and you can make a business, but it is extremely tough to make a margin and to make a living. If you add value, like a brand, for instance, or special shapes or patents in our company, then you have a unique selling point. And if you have USP, then you add value, because people and consumers and retailers want that diamond. They have to come to you. Then you can make a margin. And that's the way it is. And I remember a diamond conference where we were discussing this, and I said, well, if you don't add value, there's no place for us. And somebody said, yeah, but my 10,000 members, they cannot all add value to the diamond. And that's true, but that's why they now have half of the members. Because if you don't add value, you cannot make money, then there is no place for you. And that's tough because you have to think about the strategy of your company. You can be very successful if you have a very good customer or a very customer base or a very international distribution. There are myriad possibilities. And the only thing you shouldn't do is what everybody else is doing. So that is, for me, the main essential thing in the diamond business to consider in a strategy. Because we are all looking to make sales. We are all looking to make a living and to survive when business takes a downturn. But we have to take some time and a distance from what we do. And I look at the strategy for the next 5 or 10 years. 10 years is already a long term in the diamond business. We would never have thought that the internet and sales on the internet and platforms on the internet would take such important place. 20 years ago, we didn't know, and now we can't live without it. But every 5 years, we look at it, where are we going, and let's sit down. We have, everybody of us have a day-to-day, we are busy, running around. But sit down and think about it with your staff, your colleagues, and friends, and say, well, this is the diamond industry, where should we go? I remember I went to a GIA seminar in Harvard, which is every year. And one of the professors asking, to whom are you going to sell 10 years from now if there are no retailers anymore? No bricks, no stores. And everybody got very quiet because nobody had considered the question. Now, I don't say that 10 years from now there are no beautiful jewelry stores anymore, on the contrary, but you have to ask yourself, where are my customers 10 years from now? And that goes on and on and on and on. So the step is take a step back and look at your company, look at the market, where are we going? And if we cannot add value in what we are doing today, we have to change. So that's why we say we have to change every 5 years.
That's an incredible response. That's very insightful. I think that the biggest takeaway from your response is value addition. Value addition is everything. One question that is more, I think the response is aimed more towards the Young Diamantaires as a whole. So as young people in the diamond industry, what would you say our role is, and what should be our key focus?
Well, there's a big advantage being young. The advantage of being mature like me is that you have experience. But when you're young, you develop new ideas that I never thought of and that my colleagues never thought of. So within what I just answered about what you have to look at your company is the renewal of and the changing in the markets is something that young people feel much better than we do. And if you look at change is coming always from new ideas and from new developments. And that's where Young Diamantaires come in. Here in Holland, we have a young diamantaire, a young guy who just started an internet business, which is very specialized, and within 2 years was worth almost $1 billion. These things do happen. I don't say it happens overnight in such a short time in the diamond industry, but things are changing as we speak, and Young Diamantaires can push that, but use it to their own advantage. I think the future is very much involved. The internet is very much involved. We have bricks and clicks are growing faster than the bricks. But if you look at the last 6 months, the jewelry stores did great business. Absolutely fantastic, 50% more than before. So there is not one solution to the problem. In our industry, it is multifaceted. There are many solutions. but Young Diamantaires can push the change and leave us all Diamantaires obsolete. And I think that is what we expect from the next generation, that we look back at the company and see a totally different company than what it was 10 years ago. You can push the market and the changes. And I can see that also in our organizations when we discuss important changes in organizations. The young Diamantaires adapt and adopt much easier than colleagues of my age. I like to push, that's for sure. Does that answer your question?
It absolutely does. And I think it answers the question for all the other young diamantaires, that we have to be at the forefront of change. That's what it has to be. Thank you so much, Edward.
Amazing answer, gave us great insight. We're kind of already approaching the end of the time, but I think we still have one or two more questions. Would Adriana, do you maybe have one more?
So look, I mean, listening to everything that you've described here today, Edward, I mean, there are a few really key takeaways, particularly for young people. But I wanted to ask, you know, obviously you come from a very rich family background and history that's helped to develop the amazing company that, you know, Mike and Lita are taking over today. Personally speaking, and I know a lot of other young diamantaires are new to the industry, is there any kind of last minute wisdom or a couple of pieces of advice that you could give diamantaires like myself that are just starting out that would have helped you potentially enter the industry when you were younger?
I remember when I was younger, I was amazed, because then you think you're new, you have a university degree, you know better. It takes a few years till you understand that you don't. Part of what you asked, I said about looking at your own company and looking at how can we add value to diamonds. Another thing is that we didn't discuss is you have to do what you enjoy. You have to have passion. I have passion for diamonds, colored diamonds, rough diamonds. I love rough diamonds. You have to have passion in what you do, because then you do it best, and then it is fulfilling for your life. If you do something that you don't enjoy, I remember I had an uncle who spent his life sorting 150 and 20 per carat. That would not be very stimulating to me, but for others, maybe. But it doesn't matter what you do in the diamond industry as long as you enjoy it. And then you do all the other things that we discussed. But the passion, you see that you have to be clever and intelligent about what you do in a business and in setting up building your own business. But if you talk to a customer with the passion about the piece of jewelry or the diamond that you are showing, then that makes all the difference, because that will convince the customer to buy an expensive piece of art, a piece of beauty. And if you do it as a business, as you see sometimes in retail stores, you take it or leave it, I don't care, then it doesn't work. So I think, look at it we enjoy what you are doing. That's absolutely a must, because then other people will understand why it is such a beautiful product.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's a really key takeaway, you know, for anyone starting a business or coming in, you know, relatively new to the industry, is really understanding the passion behind the goods and being able to convey that. So thank you so much, Edward.
I think what I really enjoyed today was we didn't just find out about systems of warranties and talk about organization, but especially for younger people who are starting out their own business, we got a great insight from a great businessman, if we put it that way too. So thank you, Edward, for sharing all that information too. We were perfect in the time. Thank you all for participating. Thank you, LOD from the World Diamond Council, the Executive Director of the World Diamond Council, for setting us up. And especially thank you, Edward, for taking the time for us today. We really appreciate that.
It was my pleasure and honor.
And I hope we can maybe do this one day again, if you're up for it.
Absolutely.
All right, fantastic. Well, guys, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And we will see you next time. Take care.
Thank you for joining today's webinar with the Young Diamantaires. We are proudly part of the World Federation of Diamond Bourses and have chapters all around the world in the major diamond hubs. If you'd like to know more about us or are interested in membership, attend one of our many physical and online events, get-togethers at major trade shows, please go to www.ydts.org.